Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is another episode for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses, basically where we discuss those things that are relevant to you building the premier accounting firm in your area, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. It's here that we're going to cover a range of topics each and every week that go from marketing, selling, and pricing to grow the business, onboarding clients, client retention, and relationships, talking about tech stacks, staff training, mental health, just a variety of things that you can consider as you're working on your business. In this, we actually bring on the guests, the experts, those individuals we need to be listening to as to what it is we should focus on. And today's going to be an excellent conversation, one I'm excited to have with Eric Green. I'm sure the name is familiar to you. Eric happens to have a practice, a tax practice, which is where he focuses on criminal and civil taxpayer representation, business planning, and estate planning. He specializes in representing individuals and business owners before the IRS, the Department of Justice Tax Division, and state taxing authorities, as well as business planning, tax planning, and estate planning strategies to help his clients reach their goals. He frequently speaks on tax controversies and tax topics for a number of organizations, including CCH, the NAEA, ABA tax section, and the Connecticut Bar, along with NATP. So a variety of things going on there, always a wealth of information. Eric, welcome to the show.
Roger, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, regarding this, I'd like to start with a little bit of a backstory. You've got legal, you've got tax. Tell us how you got into the accounting profession and how you got to owning and operating the business that you have today.
My journey, it's funny, my journey was nothing, was not straightforward. So I was an accounting major, went to Hofstra, graduated in 93, realized fairly quickly I didn't like the practice of accounting. I love the numbers. I love the theory. Didn't really love the practice. I ended up going into internal auditing. I was there for probably 3 or 4 years. Decided to go to law school, but was in a position where I wasn't going to quit and just go back full time. So I ended up going full time to law school at night. I don't recommend it. It was 4 nights a week for 4 years. Finished up law school full time, and figured, well, I have an accounting background. I want to go into tax planning. Law firms will love me. No one wanted me. The big law firms don't like law school at night. They viewed it, they looked down on it. The accounting firms were like, well, you're a lawyer. You're not really an accountant. I ended up at KPMG doing state and local audit defense. Stayed there for a little bit, decided I kind of like this controversy thing, and went and got my LLM, which is a master's in tax at Boston University. As I was almost about halfway through, KPMG decided to downsize. So their state and local practice went from 60 people to 9 in one day. Just they emptied the department. I was one of them. And so my wife had gotten her accepted for her postdoctorate at Yale. So we moved to Connecticut. I finished going to BU distance learning, and I met another lawyer who was a bankruptcy lawyer, litigation, thought, tax is really important. It comes up a lot, named Jeff Sklarz. Our law firm is Green and Sklarz today. And so today we're 25 people in 2 offices. And the focus of my practice is civil and criminal tax. I originally went out to do estate planning. But what happened is this person's being audited, and then you help them, and then they refer somebody else. My controversy practice literally happened sort of by mistake. Not by mistake, but it wasn't planned. It sort of, I became more and more moving from estate planning into resolution, audits, appeals, helping people work out payment arrangements, offers and compromise. And I got a call one day from 2 former IRS attorneys who said, we need somebody else. We kind of know each other. Would you be interested in coming in? I didn't do criminal and I didn't do litigation. They did. And so it was an opportunity to kind of take my practice to the next level. I worked with them. They retired out. And Jeff at that point was at another firm, decided he'd had enough. And we eventually, it was funny. The controversy bar in Connecticut was 12 people. They were all retiring. So eventually Jeff and I we're going to be each other's only competition. And it was funny, for the first couple of years when we opened, I would get a call and they'd be like, all right, after they talk to me, all right, Eric, this is interesting, but I got another name. I'm going to call him too. I said, oh, who? Jeff Sklar's. I'm like, well, he's in the office next to me. I'll put you on hold. I'll go get him. They're like, whoa, he's in your office? I'm like, yeah, it's Green and Sklar's. And he said, oh, well, then I guess I'm in the right place. Now I don't need to talk to him. And he'd have the same thing. He said, I got a call. It was one of us. I picked it up. And so that's kind of how it got started. I mean, I fell into it. It just was kind of a natural, because I was going to go out, do M&A and estate planning.
Wow.
And that didn't happen.
I find it interesting. So many of the people I talk to, they'll also use that same phrase, I fell into it. And it's usually meant to represent that it wasn't intentional. It wasn't what they were planning, say, for the last 5 years or so. But in reality, it's a lot of life choices that led you to this point. Clearly, the fact that you not only after getting your accounting degree chose to do the legal and do that at night, but it was those life choices, one thing after another, that put you in this position to be able to actually have what you have today. So one, I get that there is some fortuitousness to it all, but at the same time, I think that the journey you've experienced is partly because of the choices you've made along the way, and so well done on your part. And I think what you've created is phenomenal. Now, as it relates to tax, here's a few things that I want to kind of establish, because I think this is just a fascinating discussion that we can have. You've got differing let's say expertises. You've got clearly the tax planning and strategies that can go into place, and you can spend a good deal of one's career servicing that market in tax planning. You've got tax preparation, obviously filing the returns. People can have a wonderful career doing just that. You've got tax resolution, where you're obviously helping individuals that are dealing with issues. Also, you've got the tax audit and the tax representation. There's a variety of after the fact type things, and you're doing obviously the defense litigation and at the same time helping people with planning. So you're kind of in that full spectrum, and I just wanted to kind of dive into each of these and see what opinions you have of it, because I believe so many people in the accounting space see tax as just tax, and they don't recognize that there's these various expertises that we can dive into. So let's start first of all with tax planning and tax strategy, let's say. How would you describe that? What is that?
What I have found, there are a lot of accountants and a lot of lawyers too that just do because that's the way they've always done it. So I'll give you an example. We have gotten more and more defending reasonable comp in S-Corps. The IRS is getting kind of hot on this. And so that's pretty straightforward. A friend of mine, who I think you probably know, Don Brolin, looked at me one day. She's like, take it to the next step. Now, I don't do returns. So what do you mean? She said, I do, the reasonable comp for S-Corps, but I then went to my single member LLCs and said, I can save you $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. Let's convert you to an S-Corp. Now you're an S-Corp client. You have to pay for the reasonable comp report from RC Reports or whatever they're running every December. But I can get you that other $7,000, $8,000. Let's fund your own profit sharing. Let's fund your own retirement. And she said, I have now converted them over. So my single member LLCs have now all become much more engaged, valuable clients as S-Corps, and I'm going to save some of them $100,000 over 10 years. It's simply shifting from I do it this way, you're a single member, do this, to where are the opportunities? What have we not thought about? By the way, one thing that makes me nuts is I'll hear from people, they're buying new equipment every year. I said, what's wrong with the old equipment? Oh, well, my accountant said I have to find deductions. What? And I said, okay, listen. This year, if you have to find deductions, you're spending $100 to get maybe 30 of it back. You send me the $100, I'll give you 50 of it back. And they look at me like, well, that's dumb. And I'm like, yes, that's not planning. Now, listen, if you need equipment, by all means, do it in December. You get the, right on, whatever. But it's really, where are the opportunities to help somebody? Sometimes it's minimize tax, but sometimes it's being more efficient. Sometimes it's actually adding value exponentially, depending on where they invest their money. On the rep side, we might help solve the problem. And I've actually, an example, a number of years ago, there was a painting contractor, huge, 15 different crews, and had payroll issues, sales tax issues. And I had explained to him, if you have a payroll issue or a sales tax issue, your business model doesn't work. How is it that you can't pay over the sales tax that you've collected? Right? There's something wrong.
Yeah.
We took him to 3 crews and doubled his profitability in 18 months. Bigger is not necessarily better. This is where I think if you're an accountant, EA, CPA, even a bookkeeper, you have an expertise. Try to go from just the compliance aspect to what have I learned and can I apply that to help other people? And you'll start to move. That's what I think advisory is simply adding value beyond I do forms, I do QuickBooks or Xero or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
I have expertise in this. Now let me apply it and help you restructure, become more profitable, whatever.
So what you're describing here is clearly that there's more to taxes than just filing. There's a strategy, there's an opportunity, whether it be Don Brolin's idea of taking the businesses from the single to the S-Corp. We've got ourselves in a position here where we're able to leverage the tax code, the tax law to legally lower our tax liability. And so that's what we're looking for from a tax strategy point of view. And then you've got a business, obviously, that's doing tax preparation, and we can speak of what those opportunities look like as it relates to growing a business in that space. But I want to move past that and get into more of what you're dealing with, which is the resolution, the defense, and so forth. What can you tell us about that space?
So first of all, it's a very easy add-on to whatever you're doing. So if you're in the accounting tax space, this is not a radical shift. In fact, I have to be honest, you probably already have most of the skills you have. What most people don't understand is the process. There's a lot of fear and confusion around the IRS. I have to tell you, the IRS doesn't trust their frontline people. So in many ways, I mean, to use their own judgment. So in many ways, it's very linear and very simple. In fact, I sometimes have told people what happens when people call and they owe money or they have an issue. They want to explain. And there's a cycle. I've learned there's a psychological aspect. They want to unburden themselves because it's embarrassing and explain how they got here. Now, I've learned you have to give them their 10 minutes because otherwise they don't feel like you're listening to them.
Yes.
But after that, I got to be honest, if you just give me the notices, I'll know what's happening faster than you can explain it because it's again, I think of it as linear. There's a very it's the IRS. It's a systematized process that the system sends this and then it sends this and then this happens. There's no real departing from that. It would be chaos at the government if everyone could do whatever they felt like. So once you learn the process, if you can do a tax return, you can do an offer and compromise. It's a formula for the most part. And so it's a kind of a mind shift. It's understanding almost in a way from going from doing the compliance to advising. It's very similar. You have a problem. I can fix this. Whether it's getting the missing returns done, working out a payment plan, going through the formula to do an offer and compromise. It's an easy add-on to what you're already doing. For instance, I get this a lot. Do I have to get rid of my tax practice? Do you want to? Now, at some point, you'll start making enough doing rep. You can make way more money with far fewer cases. You might decide you want to get rid of your practice. But what you may find is you're going to pick your top 10 or 20 clients. You'll keep them and the rest are going to go. And quite frankly, unless someone comes in and is willing to pay the appropriate fee for the actual service, you're not going to be interested. You're not chasing 1040s anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's basically going from general practitioner to surgeon. All right. It's a specialized service. We charge a specialized fee. It's funny, like you said before about how I fell into it. If I think about it, there was a time, and I was still in law school, there was a former IRS attorney that had gone on his own. He was in Massachusetts. I was introduced to him. And at the time, he was charging $700 an hour. This is 20-something years ago. It blew my mind. And I remember I actually said to him, I'm like, people pay that? He said, they have no choice. Go somewhere else. Good luck. And the truth is, because I went and looked, there really weren't many people. They were all former IRS or DOJ lawyers, and there weren't
Yeah.
that many of them. And so when this started becoming a thing, and I looked around at the Connecticut bar, I was turning in my 30s. They were all in their 60s. So just do the math. 10 years later, when I was in my 40s, they all retired. They're all out. And so Jeff and I almost have a monopoly in Connecticut. In fact, some of my biggest competition are my own tax rep members. Oh, who I actually refer cases to. But this is something I feel that you can help taxpayers. And in fact, I tell people, when they get, marketing, how do you find clients? Start with your existing network, your existing clients, the people who already like you.
Yeah.
Those are your best referral sources. My very first tax rep member, he's retired now, was Anthony DeLucia. Anthony sat through the initial training. We have his letter actually in our members area so people can use it. He sent a one-page letter to his 500 clients, what to do if you can't pay the taxes. He got $148,000 of new business his first year. Why? People began emailing him. I didn't know you did this. My brother has a problem. My cousin has people can't send you work if they don't know that you do it. People think, oh, I have a tax problem, I have to get a lawyer. They don't. CPAs and EAs can do 95% of what I do. We don't do that much litigation. Honestly, I actually had the CPA said, why don't you just send me all the other work and you just do the litigation? I'm like, all I'll prove is how quickly I can starve to death. There just isn't enough of it. So the government does criminal cases, not that many, not enough to make a living on.
Yeah.
Most of the true white collar criminal lawyers I know, they'll do tax, but they're doing securities fraud. They're doing all kinds of other things because there just isn't enough tax litigation. So this really comes down to process and formula. So bookkeepers, accountants, you have the skills to do this.
So one of the things that I think is important to recognize is whether your firm is choosing to specialize in one of these areas of tax or choosing to actually offer all of these related services. And that doesn't necessarily imply that you have to, as a tax preparer, do each of these. You can have in your firm a tax strategist, somebody that's specializing in tax planning strategies. You can have the tax preparers, and you can have some other individuals doing the tax resolution and defense type of stuff. But the point that I'd like to point out here is, in addition to this being a full service tax business, there's a great demand that's swelling up because there's talk of the IRS ramping up in their division, and that emphasis is going to just kind of stir the pot that more of these things are going to happen where they're sending out the letters. They're actually going to be going after individuals. What can you tell us about how the IRS is changing and this is becoming a priority as to they're going after some of these people?
Well, it's in a way, it's really interesting. So just on the first note, I've had a number of my rep members sell their tax compliance practice to a firm, and what they do is when they sell, I'm going to stay and I'm going to build out your representation practice. So now I can do the representation. I can handle all of your representation. You take care of all of my accounting and tax clients. And I have a number of them that have now literally built an entire wing onto these more regional practices of just representation. The interesting about the IRS is they're ramping up. They're doing all this hiring. They're not doing great training. And so, to go back, when I started getting clients I actually have a book on how to build $1 million practice. I tell this story in there. I have a client who gets into trouble and he says, go down there and negotiate with the IRS. I know nothing about what I'm doing, but I'm a lawyer. So I have all of his facts and the dates. So I go in there and I meet with a gentleman. His name was Jim Morey. He's now since retired. He used to build Corvettes in his garage. I hope he's building Corvettes now. But anyway, I go in and I have another funny story about Jim Morey. But anyway, I go in and I meet with him, and we sit down at the little conference room table, and I start in on, well, this is what happened and this, and I'm going on, and he's just staring at me. Older guy. And he said, Mr. Green, you don't know what you're doing, do you? And I said, it's that obvious? He said, okay, we have to get your client into compliance. I said, what's compliance? He He said, okay, let's back up. He said, first, I have to read you Pub 1. And he would read you Publication 1 about the taxpayer rights. Do you understand what I've just read? Yes, Mr. Moran said. He did that for 10 years that I dealt with him. I call him, hey, Jim, it's Eric. I got to talk to you about Mr. Green. Let me read you Pub 1. I would be like, Mr. Green, okay, Jim, read me Pub 1. And he would go through the thing. One day I call him up. It was in December. And I said, Jim, I have to talk to you. I'm like, I'm sorry. Do you want to go over Pub 1? He said, we don't need to do that. And he said, Eric, I said, you're retiring, aren't you? He said, 1 week, I'm done. He retired. But that's how I knew. But anyway, we sat there. I learned to do this from the IRS. He actually taught me how to do this. You have to get them into compliance. We need the missing returns, only the last 6 years. And I learned by doing because they trained you. We used to have auditors that weren't out to get the taxpayer. They would come in, they were professional. They would say, look, I'm not buying this, but can you go get this? If you can get me that, I think I can allow this. Today, there's none of that. It's more done through correspondence. Everyone's remote. So in a way, Roger, the demand is going up because they're going after people again. Right now, it's non-filers. The reminder threats are going out. The automated enforcement will probably start end of summer, fall. If you're listening to this, they're expecting it around Labor Day, a little bit later of 2024 is when the automated levies will start.
Yes.
Now, they can levy 3.5 million people today. I have it on good authority from Nikki Johnson, who's the director of the automated campuses. They're not going to hit 3.5 million people on a Monday. It would be a nightmare for them, everybody. It'll go out in waves.
Yes.
6 to 12 months. But so right now, we have all of this enforcement ramping up. You can't get trained the way that I did. There just aren't the people. They're just not doing the face-to-face that they used to. And so in many ways, we've seen an uptick that having a trained representative is almost more important. Whereas before, if you were a smart EA CPA, you could probably do what I did. Go meet with them, work something out. They'd walk you. Usually they'd walk you through it. There's none of that now. So we're getting a lot of folks that I have this issue. How can I get trained quickly? Because the work is coming in and trying to learn it on your own, you can do it. It's just a little bit cumbersome. So it's really been a shift as the demand has gone up. I think the demand for trained people have come up simply because you can't walk into the local office anymore and talk to the appeals officer.
Yeah.
Even if you can find a local office, they're not there. They're at home, right? Everyone's working remote, which I think is going to eventually swing back. I think the pendulum is going to swing back the other way because it is a problem.
So one of the things that you're pointing out here is the fact that we've got this wave of filings are going to be challenged, and we're going to have a situation here where as many as 3 million plus individuals are going to get notices, and all of a sudden we're having to represent these individuals because they're going to squirm. They don't know what to do, how to do it, and they're going to be reaching out. But you're clearly indicating that the process is going to be less personable. It's not going to be one that we're going to be able to sit down across the table and actually represent. That's one of the things that's going to change is there's going to become this process, more of a process-driven type system. So if you can't go like you had done and learn, basically interacting with the IRS directly, one of the things that you're doing is you offer a program to help in this process. Tell me about why you even created the program to begin with.
Well, again, so the way that I got business is I would invite an accountant into a room. So I take a room at the Sheraton or wherever. We would do a presentation. Back then, NASBA wasn't really kind of a thing, so we would just give credits. All you had to do was have somebody who had the right experience, and we could give credits to the accountants, whatever. And so I would do this, and they would refer cases, and that's how I built my practice. One day I gave a talk. It was at Paychecks. They hosted it. I came in and spoke.
Yep.
CPA, who is still I'm friends with, he lives right around the corner from me, came up to me at the end. He said, "I would pay you if you would teach me to do this." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Offers, installment, all this stuff you just covered. Would you teach me to do this? Because I'd like to do this." And I was like, "Huh. Okay, that's interesting." So I created it was an 8-hour training program. I called it originally Tax Genius. And how do you know if it works? So I invited a bunch of my friends, 2 EAs, 2 CPAs, 2 attorneys into a room. Anthony DeLucia, the first tax rate member, was one of them. And they sat through the training and I got feedback. Originally, it was a big 3-ring binder. That was the course. And they liked it. Well, they're my friends. See, you can't trust them. So I need to go test it. So I go test it, but I don't want to do it in my own backyard and start training my own competition because I had this fear that everyone would be doing this all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's never happened. But anyway, I go to Boston and I go down to New York. Sold out the room. Feedback was great. And so I decided the only way to sell this would be to put it online. So I built a website and I put the course online. One of the people that saw it happened to be a salesperson for CCH. And she called me. I'd met her. She, one of the people that would come by your office and try to sell you the books.
Yeah.
Marjorie, she's retired. Lovely. She said, I saw your course. I think we might like that. I'm like, what do you mean? She said, I actually sent an email. We have M&A people that go and get, CCH goes and acquires stuff.
Yeah.
I got a call from this person. And I said, well, maybe if they're interested, everybody else would be interested. So I called Intuit, Drake, the NAEA, the NATP, and this person from CCH called me. Intuit, Drake, the NATP had no interest. The NAEA told me they already had NTPI and it was a threat to them and they wanted nothing to do with it. CCH listened to me and said, it's kind of a niche thing. We'll get back to you. They called me back and said, we spoke to our people at the IRS and they confirmed what you told us. Because I had given them the statistics. Back then, 5 million people with balances due, which was huge. Today, it's over 15 million.
Yeah.
And so CCH signed a deal. There's a funny story to this. A licensing deal. So they licensed it. They said, you got to record it professionally not on your computer, but in our studio. So I go to Riverwoods, Illinois, and I'm out at CCH, and they give you this whole thing, what to wear. Don't wear anything with a pattern because it might look like it's moving. So I pick out, because I'm going to be there a week, 5 outfits that I think will work.
Yeah.
And I go the first day, and I'm wearing a navy blue suit. It's like a silvery blue shirt and an orange tie. And I say that for a reason. At the end, about 3:00, the guy comes out of the recording booth. He said, we're done. I said, well, it's only 3:00. He said, no, I can see you're getting tired. We're done. I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. He said, just remember, you're wearing that all week.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? He said, you're wearing that all week. He said, I can't have you popping in and out of the video in different outfits.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't tell, I'm 6'2", 250 pounds. I'm a former college football player. I'm not an easy guy to fit. So I now go running out looking for it was Men's Warehouse. And I walk into one, some high school kid there. I'm like, I need 4 more of the shirt. They had 2 more. So I just circulated for the week and I got through the week of recording. And they went out and we sold like a couple thousand of them actually, which I was amazed at. But what happens now is I start getting emails. Eric, can I refer a case to you? And I said, well, yeah, but why aren't you doing it? Well, I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I'll coach you. So now I'm sending these retainer agreements to all these people. And finally, one of them said to me, Eric, would you consider just like a monthly retainer? And the computer guy who'd originally helped me with the original course said, well, why don't you start a membership site? The whole thing was so stupid to me. I'm like, a membership site? I'm a lawyer. Who pays a membership fee to a lawyer? So I emailed like the 20 accountants I was dealing with. I said, would people be interested in this?
Yeah.
All 20 of them signed up. So all of a sudden we became Tax Rep Network. And I said, well, if they're paying just to consult, there should be more than that. So I started doing like a monthly Q&A. And then I started recording more training. And it has now become a community of about 400 accountants, lawyers. We have 16 people that are international, that are U.S. licensed, but in Israel, Guam, Paris. And we do monthly training. We have a huge training library. If you've noticed, we just signed deals with MyLaw, CLE, RightWorks, and Becker to provide content for our training. That's how the whole thing started. I never planned on building a membership community. Again, I fell into it. It's one of those things that just sort of happened. I think part of the thing is understanding an opportunity when it shows up.
Yes.
Hal walking up and saying, "I'd pay you if you would teach me." What my two partners would have been like, "Get lost." I was like, "Wait a minute, that's interesting." And it's sort of, you go down the rabbit hole.
Yep. So when you're working with these firms that are obviously starting to take on these tax opportunities and so forth, I'm actually very curious. What's one of the things that you find holds them up from moving forward? What's their hesitation from wanting to start doing this simply because of the fact that clearly there's a demand?
Well, a couple things. What I hear a lot of, there are three things. What I hear a lot of is, "I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm too busy." And I'll tend to give them the speech like, "What are you busy doing? Please tell me it's not 1040s. All right. Or it's bookkeeping. If you haven't automated that stuff by now, it used to be you get staff. Well, good luck finding staff. I keep throwing her under the bus, but Don Brolin dragged me to Scaling New Heights. And I don't want to. What do I go to the exhibit hall for? It's for accountants. No. You got to come. I was blown away. In fact, to the point where I've really gone diving now into the automation because it's just so. I mean, I remember green sheets when I got out of as an accountant.
Yeah.
It's all automated now. But so we hear a lot of, "Well, I'm too busy doing what is effectively low fare work." And even if you don't want to do rep, that's fine. You got to make a shift. You can't. This is not a good way to spend your life. I do hear, and no offense to the accountants, well, that's kind of expensive. If you just come in off the street, the gold membership is $399. Now, the average case, according to our tax rep members, is $8,300, which means you paid for it for a little over 2 years with one case.
Yeah.
If you look at, so I tell people, if you're looking for CPE, you're right, this is not for you. Go somewhere else. If you understand the opportunity, honestly, it's cheap. In fact, most of our members don't leave. We have very low turnover. They tend to come and stay and build and build and build. My coaches were all my original members. They've gotten so good and so big, I felt stupid charging them for membership. I said, "Once you come and join me and help coach, I mean, you've lived this with me." There are some, though, that recognize it immediately. And I've actually had some firms say, "There is someone we want you to train. In other words, we want to build a department that does this, and we have somebody, and so you train, and also we support you. That's part of the membership, is you consult with us." And so the big hangups I get of is, "I'm too busy," or they're looking at it purely as dollars and cents, like CPE, and if that's the way you're looking at it, you're right. This is not for you.
Yeah. Now, when you're describing all that, I can see the sense in it all. But one of the things that you're pointing out is clearly that there has to be a desire to take the business this direction.
Yep.
Everybody's got their own business. They have what they want to kind of prioritize and offer. And so clearly it's a choice that they get to make. But the thing I want to ask you is, where do you see the future going with the IRS? Clearly they've got the staff that they're ramping up, but there's a lot of move towards automating these processes. Every administration has a different goal as to how they want to actually impact the tax, policies and so forth. But do you have any inclination as to where the next few years may go?
Well, so here's what's going to happen. They will keep automating, but they can only do so much with the automation. Like, so for instance, I'll give you an example. So I do a lot of work with Gruntworks on, and they've automated the 1040. I wanted them to help me automate the completion of the 433, which is the collection information statement we use for IRS collection. They literally said right out of the gate, impossible. There's so many moving parts. And the thing about a 1040, every W-2, the line item means the same thing. Whatever W-2 it's on, line number 2 means the same thing.
Yeah.
Not so with bank statements, utility bills. So with what we do, they will automate to a certain level. So if you owe $3,000, you know what? You can go online, set it up and frankly, you don't want to hire us anyway. It's not worth it. That's not who our clients are. Our clients are people that have complicated, businesses. They have penalties they want to get abated. Their situations don't just lend to just a full pay over 10 years or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are going to be in high demand for a long time. The one thing I try to break my members of is they have this bad habit of, I just want the small cases. Well, a couple things. First of all, those will get automated, the small cases. What eventually I think is going to happen is the IRS will email these people when they just email, you file and you have a balance. They'll probably just send you a message saying, would you like to just pay this $100 a month for so many months? They'll just propose it. Why not? People will probably just say yes to get rid of them.
Yes.
That's a case they don't have to deal with anymore. They've already admitted they can't do that for more than $25,000. Anything more than $25,000, the rules now become so complicated. Their own AI can't handle it at the IRS.
Yeah.
So when I tell my members, first of all, you don't want small cases because that's not the future. But more than that, they're the worst cases. If someone called me and they owe $8,000, that will be worse than I have a client right now that owes $19 million.
Oh my.
Why? First of all, $19 million, they're not going to pay. It's a slam dunk offer, and we have to go through them with their financials. The $8,000, it might as well be $18 million to that person. They're not sophisticated usually. Their books are a mess. They may not have their returns. The amount of hand-holding, questions, panicked phone calls, I'd rather take the bigger balances, because the business people, the more sophisticated business people, when I walk them through this, they get it.
Yeah.
If they don't necessarily the details, they understand I know what I'm doing. What do you need from me and my accountant? And they will get it done. The best referrals come from accountants. There's already somebody in between me and them to get the bookkeeping done, get the returns prepared. If you're listening to this and you're a bookkeeper and accountant, one of the big opportunities is just helping non-filers. Even if you said, I don't want to talk to the IRS, that's fine. Non-filers have got to get their books together, get those returns filed, and then the balances, even if you don't want to do the resolution, but honestly, if you give me a few hours, I can show you it's not that big a lift, and that's actually where the money is.
Getting them to be compliant.
Get them into compliance. The average non-filer case, according to my members in the last survey we did, was over 17,000. Why? Well, we had to get the books together. We had to get the returns done. And once that's done, now let's deal with the balance due. And so, you don't ask for 18,000 up front. You ask for 18,000, they'll be walking out the door. But if you said, look, first step, let's get you into compliance. I'll take a $5,000 retainer. Let's get your books done and get these missing returns prepared.
Yeah.
Once we have that done, we can submit them. We're going to have a number of months before we can do anything anyway. Let's work then on resolving the tax debt. We may owe sales tax and the state, whatever it is. When you start adding all that up, these tend to be very lucrative. I mean, you get a couple non-filer cases, you added 100,000 to your bottom line, which is way more than you can do just banging out 1040s.
I'm loving this. This is a lot of fun. I have to agree with you. There's a huge demand. There's a great opportunity. I feel that as an accounting profession, there's not enough of us serving these individuals that clearly are not compliant and they need some representation. And I think the point that you're making is it doesn't have to go to the point of litigation. There's a lot of things that can be done to mitigate that. And obviously with some training, assistance, and so forth, we can easily represent these clients and help them through the process. So I like what we're discussing here. One of the things that I wanted to ask is perhaps a little bit more on the personal side. I know that you've got a lot of things that you do from a marketing point of view, and you and I have discussed this. I understand you have a variety of t-shirts, one of which is not your most favorite. Tell me about that, because I happen to have one.
The IRS said what?
Yeah.
I don't know when the picture was taken, but I took a picture. It was just me with my arms crossed.
Yep.
And my staff loved that picture, and they had a t-shirt done, and literally along the bottom, you know what? I'm mixing this up. So Roger Nemeth saw the picture posted, and he put in IRS said what? My staff thought that was so great. They sent it to the t-shirt printer, and all of a sudden now in my own gym, accountants are wearing this shirt. My wife hated that shirt. She said, "You're such a nice guy. That makes you look like the Terminator." And I'm like, I didn't, she didn't buy that. I had nothing to do with it. But yeah, no, yeah, the IRS said, watch it. So she said, don't ever put your face on another shirt. Meanwhile, because of the IRS tidal wave, my marketing folks did a tidal wave shirt with surfers. My face is all. My wife got pissed. Guess who wears the shirt now around the house? She does.
Good.
I thought you didn't like that. She's like, it's a nice shirt. Anyway,
Nice shirt. She just wants to get it dirty. That's all.
I guess.
There you go. Eric, this has been a great conversation, one that I've been looking forward to simply because I think the work that you're doing is amazing. More importantly, I think the demand out there for these tax services are very important. And I agree with the example that you gave earlier. By merely sending out a letter that you're offering these services now of tax resolution and so forth, there's a number of people that are just unaware that these services can be provided. And for those clients that we're already servicing, they may not need it themselves, but they'll have family and friends that could clearly benefit. And so it's to our advantage to send this out, notify them, and obviously grow our firm in a new service. It's a new top line revenue that we can bring into the business. And it's not the traditional tax preparation work. It's obviously not the filing that we may be familiar with, but it can be a lot more lucrative. And I personally think it can be creative and fun at the same time. So I appreciate what you've described. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap things up here, and I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. And to begin, there's a few things that I'd like to point out. First and foremost, if you'd like more information, I'm going to give everyone listening an invitation to go to the episode description, and there you will find information regarding Eric's tax space. It's basically using the Tax Rep Launch Program. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, I'd like to invite you to go to the episode description and find that information there. In addition, we've got information on what it is you can do to become a professional tax preparer. It's helping teach you those things that you need to be aware of as it relates to individual and business returns, filing those as an expert, and more importantly, being certified as a certified professional tax preparer, someone who's proficient in each, and more importantly, able to actually go out and service the tax community. Obviously, in this process, if you also are needing to become an EA, there's going to be information regarding that there as well. Now, with regards to all of these things, it's basically moving into what's called a CAS system, a CAS accounting firm where you're doing client accounting services. So find out more by going to the episode description as to what it is you can do to offer these full services and clearly take care of your client. Now, in regards to the summary, I love this conversation. One, it started with Eric sharing that not only after becoming an accountant did he become a lawyer, but at the same time, he was able to put himself into various situations, paying attention to the people he was interacting with, listening for opportunities. And yes, things fell into his lap. Why? Because he was putting himself in a position where he could benefit from the various things that were being presented. I like the fact that he was attentive and conscientious enough to his situations and surroundings to see the opportunities. I like the story where he shared how the program was developed, basically just hearing that somebody would pay for this information and knowledge. He obviously recorded it, which is no small feat. And then obviously it opened the door to obviously record it. I love the story of recording it and having multiple days wearing the same clothes. Been there, done that. So that's perfectly fine. And then as it relates to providing some of these services, yeah, there is a value in offering a membership where people feel as if they're part of a community and more importantly, able to access the resources that they need to offer these quality services. So Eric, thanks for the work that you're doing as it relates to the tax needs in the accounting profession. Now, as a summary of this, one of the things that I also want to just end with is the fact that I think there is a huge wave coming. I think you pointed out very well that there's a lot of individuals out there that are going to be receiving here in the coming months notifications of this type of need, and we need to be prepared as tax professionals to be able to service them. So great little insights. Love this. And Eric, what would be your closing thought?
This is a service that not only can you pick up fairly quickly, it is an add-on, an easy add-on to what you're already doing in the accounting tax space. And by the way, when you solve someone's tax problem, you will have a client for life. They will never leave you because you're the person that solved their problem. In fact, a lot of my members have said, even if they want to sell their 1040 clients, they get bent out of shape because what do you mean you can't fire me? You're the person who saved me. And so, no, I would urge you to, if nothing else, whether you want to make this your practice or simply help people to come in as an addition, it's something you can easily add without going too far out of your lane.
Perfect. I love it. Well, as accounting professionals, clearly what we're striving to do is offer quality services and become the premier accounting service in our area. So with that in mind, I think this has been a great discussion. Here's what I'd like to do to kind of wrap things up. First, to the listeners, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely invite you to subscribe to the podcast. Love to have you actually listening each and every week when we release a new episode, hearing from the experts what it is we can be doing to work on our business. In addition to that, if you'd like to actually binge listen some past episodes, we've compiled a playlist highlights of various episodes from the experts where we've put together things as it relates to various topics ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, mental health, and so many more. I invite you to go to universalaccounting.com, and there in the navigation, find the podcast section, and there you'll see the highlights. I invite you to binge those. You're going to find a wealth of information there that you definitely want to take advantage of. In addition to that, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is a conference that is annually done for the owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. This annual conference is a must attend. It's here that we have the experts on the stage, hearing from them as to what it is we need to be doing to work on our business, to grow our companies, and confidently do what we're needing to do so that we can get paid what we're worth. In addition to that, you get to meet with your peers, those individuals that are there to actually grow their businesses, and meet them, befriend them, and collaborate with them. I'm sure there's a lot of services out there that are able to actually assist the clients that you're servicing. And here's a great place to actually meet and find those individuals that you can collaborate with. In addition, you can meet the staff at Universal Accounting. It's those individuals that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal. So join us, register now for GrowCon, and I look forward to seeing you there. Lastly, with regards to the show, if you would actually have any information that you'd like to discuss, things that you'd like to know more about, feel free to reach out to us. You can visit us online at universalaccountingschool.com, or you can give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is Universal. Take care and have a great day out there. Eric, that was awesome.
No, thank you.
You bet. So here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you record that promo piece.
All right. Should I go whenever?
Yep, when you're ready.
All right. All right. This is Eric Green. It was a pleasure to record with Roger Necht an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm, where we discuss adding IRS representation services to your existing business and how you can help taxpayers and also help grow your business at the same time.
Perfect. All right, Eric, it's a wrap. So here's what I'm going to have you do. Brian's going to clean up the episode. He's going to make it look nice and pretty. And then at the same time, he's going to put it in a position where we can then publish it. When it publishes, it'll go live, and we'll let you know that it's now online. When that happens, love to have you like it, share it, promote it, and go from there. And then as it relates to the promo piece, we'll usually release that a few days before the actual episode airing. Generally speaking, I think this is scheduled to go out at the end of the year, but because of the nature of it, I'm going to see if we can put this up sooner and maybe have it published here in the coming weeks and bump a few episodes around. So that's what will happen. But when it goes live, we'll reach out to you and let you know what's happened. Last thing, obviously, I think there's a lot going on between us. So if there's something that we can do to collaborate, I know that I'm discussing with you your event in December. I know that we've been looking at possibly having a booth there. So we'll see where all that may go.
Yeah, you know what? In fact, Roger, let me talk to Gaynor because I think we only have one left. So I'm going to tell her to hold that because, and the other thing is I still want to have a strategy conversation with you because I think I've liked some thoughts about where we are because I think I'm too bogged down in it. Mm-hmm. I'd like another view because it's a little frustrating at the moment. So